When it comes to bingeable TV, there's nothing quite like Friends. NBC's hit sitcom has been off the air for well over a decade, but for some fans, it's still #1 on their streaming queue. From jokes that never fail to land to emotional moments that resonate just as much as ever, Friends is an easy show to watch with a lot of payoff packed into each episode. Even so, there are some scenes that don't hold up quite as well as others, and maybe never did. For better or worse, mostly worse, here are the parts of Friends that are impossible to forget for all the wrong reasons. Ross hits on Cassie. Let's face it, Ross could be a bit of a creep sometimes. Never was that more true than when his cousin Cassie comes into town for Monica and Chandler's wedding, and Ross can't control himself. It's bad enough that he once kissed Chandler's mom and went on a date with Rachel's sister, but making a move on his own flesh and blood? His inner monologue is about as gross as it gets.
Oh, I know that book. Forget it. I want it. She wants it. I'm going in.
Pretty hard to root for him to find true love after that foul flirtation. Phoebe's rat babies. Phoebe has had some pretty cringe-worthy moments on the show, but perhaps the most insufferable is when she adopts a litter of rat babies that are delivered in her kitchen cabinet after Mike terminates their mother. Mike tries to play nice about it all.
Yeah, we have rat babies now.
But the part where he has to explain to her that the rats will mate with one another irrespective of their sibling status is too ditzy to endure.
That's like... That's math I can't even do!
Joey can't speak French. Joey has a lot of moments of doing dumb things, and most of the time it's hilarious.
Can I just stop you right there for a second? When people do this, I don't really know what that means.
But the show takes it too far when Joey tries to learn French from Phoebe and can't even repeat the simplest of phrases.
Great, okay, faster. Je m'appelle.
Pelle.
Je m'appelle.
Me poo-poo.
Sure, Phoebe's frustrated reactions are comedy gold.
You're not speaking French!
But dumbing him down this much is pretty low, even by Joey standards. Rachel pretends to smoke. Smoking was a pretty regular subject of Friends, thanks to Chandler quitting and picking back up the habit so many times throughout the series. But things go pretty off the rails when Rachel decides to take it up to spend more time with her boss and coworker so that she doesn't get edged out of work decisions. Not only is it frustrating to watch her debase herself to impress others, but it doesn't even work.
So you'll come with me on the Paris trip.
Oh man!
So much for her being a role model. Joey and Rachel try to do it. Rather than giving fans what they really wanted between Ross and Rachel, things went bananas altogether in the final seasons as Rachel and Joey struck up a romance. It's awkward enough when Joey falls in love with Rachel while she's pregnant, but when she eventually returns his affection and they try to make something out of it, well, the chemistry is not convincing at all. The only good thing that comes out of it is Ross's drunken rant about being totally okay with it.
To love. Love.
They try and fail to take their hookup to the next level.
I'll show you how we do it.
No. You need me in my masters.
It might have been the 10th season with the showrunner saving Ross and Rachel's reunion till the very end, but this was a major misfire and is almost unbearable to watch. Of course, those were only 5 bad moments in a show full of truly excellent moments. So how do you pick the top 5 most excellent scenes from Friends? We're going to try. The one where they don't know they know. Friends was usually at its best when all 6 characters were huddled together on the orange couch or hanging out in the big purple apartment. But every once in a while, they broke off into individual adventures that were downright hysterical. Early on in Season 5, Chandler and Monica are desperate to hide their budding romantic relationship from the others because they fear talking about it might ruin everything. Poor Joey has to spend weeks covering for them, but eventually Rachel and Phoebe figure things out for themselves. Instead of merely confronting the couple for keeping this a secret, Phoebe pretends to be interested in starting up her own tryst with Chandler. Monica realizes they're being toyed with right away and decides to play along.
They don't know that we know that they know. So...
yes. The messers become the messies.
Things escalate pretty spectacularly from there, and between the comedic timing of the cast and the sheer ridiculousness of their commitment to this caper, it's an all-timer. The one with the Europe story. There are a lot of great scenes surrounding Rachel's surprise pregnancy revelation, from Phoebe's wacky cover-up effort to the group's hunt to find out who the father is, to Ross's hilarious reaction to the news that their prophylactics of choice didn't work. But when Ross reveals that he accidentally taped his fateful night with Rachel to settle the question of who initiated the encounter, well, it's peak TV in more ways than one.
So happy.
On the day of their hookup, Ross had been so hard up that he turned to Joey for some seduction pointers and learned a fake story about a Europe trip that always seems to seal the deal for Joey. Ross then tries it and still bombs on his date.
I was hiking along the foothills of Mount Tibidabo.
I think it's Tibidabo.
Okay, do you want to tell the story?
Joey refuses to accept that it's the story's fault Ross crashed and burned and advises Ross to practice his lines with a camcorder to review his storytelling skills. But Ross gets interrupted by Rachel, who comes along to get his help addressing Monica and Chandler's wedding invitations.
Did you do it on our invitations?
Even though up to now everyone's been convinced Ross initiated things, the footage then shows Rachel starting to tell a familiar story.
Ross, did I ever tell you about the time that I went backpacking through Western Europe?
And the reactions from the couch crowd said it all. Evolution is a theory. Phoebe Buffay might have seemed a bit ditzy at times, but when she was on, she was on. Never was that more true than when she decided to challenge one of Ross Geller's most sacred scientific principles, evolution.
It's just, monkeys, Darwin, it's a nice story. I just think it's a little too easy.
Ross can't handle the idea that she doesn't agree with the findings, so he puts on his PhD cap and starts collecting evidence to prove it to her. He doesn't get the reaction he's hoping for because Phoebe refuses to budge and instead hits back with some surprisingly salient points.
Wasn't there a time when the brightest minds in the world believed that the Earth was flat? You can't admit that there's a teeny tiny possibility that you could be wrong about this?
With so much empirical evidence in her corner, Ross has no choice but to concede, and Phoebe's reaction is even more humiliating than her mastery of the argument.
I can't believe you caved.
What?
You just abandoned your whole belief system. I mean, before, I didn't agree with you, but at least I respected you.
Ross is defeated and embarrassed, and Phoebe's status as a secret genius is finally revealed.
That was fun. So who's hungry?
The one with the severed toe. Some of the funniest moments on Friends don't take place in the present, but rather are revealed via flashbacks. In Season 5's Thanksgiving episode, we find out that Chandler's nubbin isn't his only physical deformity. The episode features several flashbacks, including one with Joey getting his head stuck in a turkey and Phoebe losing some limbs in another lifetime. More importantly, we learn that once overweight Monica only got into shape after overhearing Chandler call her fat. When his reaction to her revenge body isn't punishing enough the following year, Monica turns to Rachel for some help.
I want him to be like naked, and I want to point at him, and I want to laugh.
Okay, that we may be able to do.
Rachel gives her some solid tips on how to seduce a guy in simple ways, but Monica must miss a few key details of the discussion because her attempt to replicate the moves goes horribly wrong. Not only does she look ridiculous, but she ultimately drops a knife right onto Chandler's toe and fails to bring it to the hospital for reattachment. The best bit comes when we learn of the social damage his injury caused all those years ago.
That's why for an entire year people called me Sir Limps-a-Lot.
Ouch. Ross and Rachel finally kiss. This moment would probably top most Friends fans' all-time favorite list, and it may well be one of the most iconic moments of television, ever. In the show's second season, the chemistry that's been slowly building between Ross and Rachel finally comes to a head. Once Ross finds out that Rachel's been harboring a secret crush on him after he's held the torch for her for years, the two have a passionate argument and part ways. But then their connection is too magnetic to deny, and they come right back together again to share a kiss at long last. The smooch is long overdue and doesn't even signal the start of anything long-term between them. Ross and Rachel's road to forever would prove to be a lot more complicated than just this. But this was the moment that the two proved they were the endgame couple of the entire show. Or as Phoebe later explains,
See? He's her lobster.
thanks for watching. Click the Nikki Swift icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.